NFL Week 3 coming up. We will go through all of the Sunday and Monday football games for you. When we record, it's usually on Thursday. So when we're doing that, a lot of the time, we just rather not even get into the Thursday game because it's just about starting or midway through. So we talk about everything on Sunday and on Monday. Eric is here. This is a show that's a little different. There are some really great fantasy shows out there. There are some really great gambling shows out there. There are some shows that just preview the games. We do that all. Eric, we'll try to hit all of that for you. We'll give you our thoughts on the numbers, the line movement. We'll talk about the injury report, major injuries. Then we'll give you a little bit of game analysis, how we think the game might go. We'll talk about fantasy DFS stuff, if we're playing any props, and then just how overall we're playing the game. So we try to give you like a couple different shows all jammed into one right here, buddy. I know you've been a little under the weather. How you feeling?
Feeling better. I mean, last weekend was a little rough, but feeling good. Steelers off to a good start. Hopefully they can cover this number and get the week off to a good start.
So you and I each week now are finding 5 games that we have in common to come together to put in our mythical circa sports contest. And so far, 2 weeks, 3-2 both weeks. Not bad. So
head above water.
Yep. 6-4 through 2 weeks with a couple games over. If we keep churning that out, you know what? That's a good season. One of these weeks we'll hit a nice 4-1 or a 5-0 week. Let's see where we come together this week. We are going to go in order based on the games over at Betfred. Betfred Sports is now a big partner with our friends over at Better Than Vegas. So if you ever need a place to play, check out Betfred Sports. Eric, let's start with the Ravens Patriots. So we see in this number still Baltimore around -3. They're on the road at New England, around 44 in the over-under. Baltimore with that massive collapse last weekend. Last season, there were 61 games in which a team won by 20 or more points and a grand total of 0 games in which a team came back from a 20-point deficit to win. 2 of them on Sunday. Happened twice on Sunday.
Last Sunday was a little crazy.
So they led 35-14 at the end of the third quarter.
Yep.
And what's pretty crazy is that there were a couple of fourth down plays that sort of hurt them, but it wasn't as if they had like a bunch of turnovers or anything like that. They had 8.8 yards per offensive play, which would have been the second most by any team in any game last year. Just to give you an idea for a full season. They committed no turnovers, and they had a special team score, and they lost. The key was those 4th and short sneaks, one on the goal line early in the game, and then one when trying to run out the clock midway through the fourth quarter. That gave Miami a little bit of momentum. But, wow, man, Baltimore, that was one of the stranger games that you'll see.
Weird game. Miami's got a lot of speed. Baltimore's definitely got some issues going on in the secondary. Lamar was running a lot more. That was good. End of the day, though, with no Dobbins, no Edwards, there's just something missing from this running game, which is kind of the missing piece to this offense. Their running game's so advanced, you can't have these guys like Kenyon Drake or whoever coming off the on the street. They need someone that's been in there for a while. I feel this offense will be better, and they won't be blowing leads like this once they do it.
Just before you move, because you're talking the running backs right now, through 2 weeks, they have totaled 79 yards rushing. The running backs have for Baltimore. That is the fewest of any running back group in the NFL.
Yep. And it's because their scheme is just so advanced, and they need these guys that have been in there for a while. Dobbins, he practiced all last week. I was a little shocked he didn't play. I don't even know, because they have Buffalo on deck. So I don't even know if he's even going to play this week. Situational wise, this is a good spot to fade Baltimore. They're just coming off the loss the week before to Miami. They have Buffalo on deck. So it's a good situational spot. Belichick is 63% against the spread as a home dog. He's 83% versus Harbaugh. I was really hoping for a 3.5 here. At this 3 number, I feel it's a little bit dead.
Yeah, I agree.
If it was 3.5, I definitely looked again. New England, they did run the ball a lot better, which was good. Mac Jones doesn't look right. But on the flip side, these Ravens secondary, which was supposed to be vastly improved, didn't look good.
Well, that's the key matchup, right? Can Mac pick on the weakness of Baltimore, which right now feels like the secondary?
Yeah.
Because, if maybe it's irrelevant because Mac and the Patriots don't have that kind of game. Like, they haven't looked like a fluid offense really through a couple weeks either. I mean, they won last week against the Steelers. They got a very easy touchdown on a red zone opportunity off a fumbled punt. That was the difference in the game.
Yeah.
If they don't get that score, they may not win that game. He said he threw a third quarter pass that should have been intercepted. And then right after that, that's when the Steelers special teams muffed the punt. And then the next play, a Patriots score. It completely flipped the game. He could have thrown an interception. Instead, they end up getting the ball back right away in great field position. But you mentioned the offensive line gave up 0 sacks a week after Pittsburgh sacked the Bengals 7 times. Now, they were missing Watt, but for their offensive line, they did look a little bit better last week.
Yeah, I mean, Harris 15 for 71, Stevenson 9 for 47.
Aguilar had a nice game, 6 catches for 110 yards, right? They were giving them enough time to make some plays too.
Yeah, they're just going to be a run team. I mean, that if they can run the ball like that, they're always going to be effective. Defensively, they looked fine. It's just his offense is just so limited. They have a lack of playmakers at the wide receiver position. They really need to lean on Harris and Stevenson, and those guys need to have good games for them to have any shot of winning. Mac hasn't really taken that step forward, but when you have Patricia and Joe Judge, who are 2 of the worst coaches in the history of the NFL running the offense, I mean, what do you really expect Mac Jones to be able to accomplish?
It feels like a real under type of game, especially with the way that Baltimore wants to play. Like, they want to get up and then just try to run the ball. That's what they are hoping to do. Just a couple Baltimore tidbits before we move along. So yeah, the cornerbacks, all of the cornerbacks that were not Humphrey got targeted. Humphrey had to leave in the fourth quarter due to injury. Queen and Armour Davis each gave up 7 catches on 8 targets for over 100 yards in coverage. Hamilton did assist in 3 tackles, and Run D broke up the only pass in his coverage. Lamar did a couple things that were just nuts in this game. First player in history to have a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown of 75 plus yards in the same game.
Yeah.
That's a crazy one. The first player ever with 300 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 100 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown, all in the same game. That's like a video game number.
It was crazy what he was able to do. It was good to see him running.
And you know what? His passing, like his accuracy, he's improved every year, Lamar. He didn't come into the league like a fantastic passer, and that's still something that is going to be a weakness of his, right? He's not a marksman, but he works on it, and you can tell that he prides himself in wanting to be a really good passer. There was a stretch in the second quarter where he went 7 for 8 for 164 yards. All 7 completions picked up either a first down or a touchdown. 3 of them were touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, he's looking good. He's making a case to get that cheddar, which is good for him. He deserves to get paid. As someone that does have a Ravens future ticket, I am a little bit concerned about the issues in the safety, issues in the back 4, not being able to create pressure with a pass rush, and just not having Dobbins and Edwards. I mean, that they need Dobbins and Edwards for this offense to truly click.
Anything else as far as like injuries or stuff on this game?
No, I have a lot of bets locked in. This game is a stay away for me, though. I don't want to bet this game at all. If it gets to 3.5, then I'll definitely be on the Patriots. But right now, I have no interest in this game whatsoever.
You mentioned the spot. According to Next Gen Stats, Baltimore's DBs ran a total of 6,131 yards in this game. What does that mean? That's the most yards any secondary has run in a game since the start of last year. So maybe they have some tired legs too in a game like that where you were chasing a lot, chasing Hill, chasing Waddle. Based on the Football Outsiders post-game win metrics, Baltimore would have won that game 99% of the time, making it the biggest surprise win of the last 3 years.
That's crazy to me. That's absolutely crazy to me. I mean, that's the thing. Like when you put guys on the field with a odd shaped ball, weird stuff happens.
Yeah.
And,
the game was my only concern, Miami did look good late, but I mean, they were doing nothing early in this game. They were not
really doing nothing. It was like, it maybe I'm just out thinking it. Maybe it was just a little fluky 1 in 100 type thing. It happened, but after a game like that, it's hard to.
Yeah, the number looks a little short too. Like at 3, it's like really trappy. It feels like you really want to kind of dive in on the Ravens there. So yeah, this one's probably a stay away for me too. Ravens, Pats. Let's move along to the Bills and the Dolphins. We just talked a lot about this Dolphins team and a lot about that crazy game. So it was the first 21-point fourth quarter comeback since 2010, according to ESPN Stats and Info. The last 711 teams trailing by 3 touchdowns or more in the fourth quarter all lost. They have their coach now who has defeated Bill Belichick and Harbaugh in his first 2 games. Not a bad way to come out here and start. And you sort of just compare him to someone like Hackett. I'm not ready to crown this team at all or him, but he just gets a lot better sense of like a guy who looks like he just feels like he knows what he's doing than someone like Hackett as far as calling plays and putting some guys in like good spots to take advantage of their speed. Because we know that Tua can't really throw the ball down the field all that much, and we might be deceived by what happened here, but a lot of Tua was dinking and dunking again in this game. He had 4 fourth quarter touchdowns last week, 469 yards, 6 touchdowns overall. Only 7 players have had more yards while throwing for 6 touchdowns. But he had 2 picks early in the game, one of them when the Dolphins were in scoring range, and another that led directly to a Ravens score. So we need to stop, we need to calm the hype train a little bit, right?
I mean, like part of, I'm always going to use this analogy. I mean, you look at what this guy's done. He's come in there, and he hasn't changed everything. He's like, okay, we need this. Okay, with Tua, we need to do this. He's a smart guy, and he's putting the team and the players in a position to succeed. He's not
absolutely
Tua to throw it downfield, everything short,
yep,
intermediate type passing. He gets it. He understands it. He's been around Shanahan for a while, so he's picked up a lot of stuff. This game is hard for me. This is probably going to be another pass. I mean, everything about me says I should be taking the Dolphins here because the Bills are so overly valued. But on the flip side,
they're banged up in the secondary a little bit too.
Really banged up in the secondary, which is going to be hard to go against. Waddle and Hill and everything. But on the flip side, you got the Dolphins who just had this big epic comeback.
They're so buzzy right now too. Yeah. They're catching all the buzz.
If the Dolphins would have lost that game, I probably would have bet the Dolphins here.
I agree. I was looking to fade the Dolphins like in the spot they were in this week, but it just so happened to be against the Bills where I don't know if I want to lay that number with the Bills like that on the road in a divisional game. So this probably ends up being a stay away for me, but I think the Bills handle them. Like, I think the Bills will outclass them here. I really do.
Yeah, and also I don't know, is the Miami front going to be able to block? Going to be able to block and keep Tua upright? That's another big worry for me.
Their offensive line allowed 10 pressures. All were hurries as opposed to sacks or hits, which was nice for them. Both Hill and Waddle had 150-plus receiving yards each, 11 receptions, 2 touchdowns plus. That was the second wide receiver duo in NFL history to have 175 and 2 touchdowns. It hasn't happened since 1940. They ranked first and second in receiving yards through 2 games, and among all receivers with 50-plus receiving snaps so far, they have over 3.4 yards per route. That's first and second. And the third place finisher is Christian Kirk with 2.8. So they're well above the rest. Mostert, he got a little bit more involved. He led the team in rushing attempts. He ran 25 routes compared to Edmonds' 24. Something to keep an eye on. One of the things that their head coach is sort of doing, and it's exactly what you pointed out at the beginning. What can you do when the guy on the other side is just this much faster than you. Like, you can scheme a whole lot, but if you're able to get that player into space, that's what we saw happen a little bit. And if they can pick on the mismatches there, he's crafted an offense that that perfectly utilizes while also scheming around the quarterback's limitations. It's like a fast break offense. They were comparing it in Football Outsiders to like what we see in NBA, like what the Phoenix Suns used to do with D'Antoni. And so if you look at, and you really broke down to a stat line, it was pretty conservative with the passes they were attempting. That's by design. The offense is built to take advantage of the fact that defenses have to respect the speed on both sides. And so if Tua can just be accurate short, he's going to give his guys opportunities to be in matchups all the time. Just a smart coach.
Smart guy. And like, you can definitely see it. Like he's putting guys in a situation to win. He really has everyone believing in him. Just heads and tails amazed at what this guy's doing.
28 of the 50 attempts were targeted within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And in those 28, Tua was 23 for 28, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns on short throws. He just has to be accurate. Let your guys break them.
Yeah.
And then, with the Bills, they more than doubled Tennessee's total yards, 414 to 187. They forced 4 turnovers. Allen was incredible again, 26 for 38, 317 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 2 big-time throws, 84 plus percent adjusted completion percentage. Diggs was really good, 12 of 14 targets he caught, 148 yards, 6 first downs, 3 touchdowns. He also forced 3 missed tackles, had a 90-plus receiving grade from Pro Football Focus. Miller, again, totals 4 pressures, 3 pass rush win rates that didn't result in a pressure. He was dominant, 41% of the time winning in the pass rush. All of the top starters sat out. Like Allen and Diggs and Miller did all of that through 3 quarters. They didn't even play the 4th quarter. But to me, the Bills are head and shoulders above what we've seen from everyone else. The one struggle they still have, picking up first downs in short yardage situations. They are going to always need to find a more consistent running game that's not just Josh Allen running.
Yeah. They did run with Cook at the end of the game there against the Titans. Another thing is everything Lamar does, Allen does better, and Lamar absolutely picked apart this Dolphins defense.
That's a great point. That is a great point.
I don't really understand how the Dolphins defense is going to be able to stop Allen. What's the over-under at here? 52?
52.5? Yeah.
I know it's been a lot of unders to start the year, maybe the over here, but I can't get involved in this game at all. There's just too many. Because I feel like whatever side I bet on, I'll be buying these teams at their absolute highest.
Yeah, so, I know what you mean. It doesn't feel like you just doesn't feel like you're getting great value either way on either of these teams. Now, you did mention some of the scoring so far, down roughly 8% from a year ago through 2 weeks. So, and just one other thing to note as we anything else in this game you want to mention?
No.
We move along to the Bengals and the Jets, and the reason why this is relevant is because the Bengals, who were in the Super Bowl last year, your AFC champs, they're 0-2 to start the year. Over the last 3 seasons, 27 teams have started 0-2. All 27 have missed the playoffs. And so far this year, we actually have teams like the Bears, Giants, Jets, and Seahawks that have won that were not projected to have high win totals, that people probably didn't think they may have won a game at this point early in the year. And there are only 4 teams that are 0-2. So all of them, good luck. They're going to be in some serious trouble trying to get the job done. Let's talk Cincy. Let's talk Jets.
My main thing, I'm looking at this game like this. Burrow's just holding the ball too long. I know the offensive line's getting a lot of ridicule in the media and everything, but I've rewatched the last couple games and he's just holding the ball like for over 4 seconds. Anytime you hold on the ball that long, it's going to be easier for these defenses to get home to you. He's holding on the ball too long. The routes with Chase are way too deep. They needed to go more, get the ball out of his hands a lot quicker and stop with these deep developing routes. Need to use Mixon a lot more. The one thing is the Jets front isn't as good as the Cowboys or the Steelers front. So I think that even if he does hold on the ball a little bit longer, the front will be able to protect a little bit more.
So the number we're seeing right now is Bengals -6 on the road playing the Jets, and the total in this game is 45.
Yeah, but this is another game. Like, I use the Bengals in Survivor this week. This is my big Survivor pick. I hate laying it on the road, but I just kind of feel like Jets winning the way they did.
Super fluky. They were so. If you didn't pay attention last week, the Jets were down 30-17 with under 2 minutes to go. Scored a touchdown, recovered an onside kick, and scored again in the span of 1 minute to win the game by 1. NFL teams have lost 2,331 consecutive games when trailing by 13 or more in the final 2 minutes. Their win probability was 0.1%.
And all Chubb had to do, and don't get me wrong, I had the +6.5 for the Jets. All he had to do was fall down that
lay down. The game's over. They have no timeouts. There was less than 2 minutes to go in the game. They just kneel down 3 more times and the game's over. And he's done that before.
He has. Yeah.
And so he doesn't go down, and then he scores a touchdown, and then they miss the extra point. The same kid that hit the game winner last week from 58 yards, the game-winning field goal, they missed the extra point. And then they completely blow a coverage on Corey Davis. There was nobody within 20 yards of him. Then after that, the Jets still need to get the onside kick. The Browns, all they have to do is Amari Cooper just has to secure the onside kick. It goes right through his hands, even after he had a really good game.
That was just perfect. That's another thing. It's just kind of like the perfect storm.
And then Flacco goes nuts on the final drive. Flacco overall is 18-3 against the Browns because of his career with Baltimore.
Yeah. It was like, there's just certain games you just kind of sit back and smile, and that's one of them. I kind of feel there's no way I would lay this point.
No,
lay this many points, especially like. We need to remember last year, like the Bengals came in there and they lost to Mike White. Yep. That's got to be fresh in their minds. There's only been 6 teams that have gone 0-3 that have made the playoffs. This is absolutely a must win for them. I think they're going to get a good concentrate effort, but this is a lot of points to be laying on the ground, especially with a team that offensively just hasn't looked right. But yeah, like I said, I think they need more quick hitting, get the ball to Burrow's hand a little bit more, work the screen game a little bit more with Mixon too.
Week 1, Joe threw 4 interceptions and they lost due to the long snapper issue in overtime. Week 2, they're favored by a touchdown against Dallas, who didn't even score a touchdown in week 1, and they had lost Dak to a thumb injury. They lose to an undrafted backup who had only thrown 50 passes in 4 years. This revamped offensive line was supposed to be good. They went out and got Lyle Collins and a couple others. They've been miserable. They've given up 6 sacks and 7 sacks in their 2 weeks, so 13 overall. Last week, they allowed 11 pressures in 44 pass blocking snaps. They did not give them any time to attack the secondary whatsoever. Burrow's caught on the broadcast one time mouthing to the coach, "I need more pass blocking help." They literally catch him saying that. 2 straight losses on walk-off kicks that they should have won both of those games. And now they've only had a 26% chance to make the playoffs based on 538 projections.
When you think about it, like last year, they constantly were winning games they shouldn't have by 3 on last-second kicks. Now it's just kind of like to start this year, regression is going the opposite way with them. Because you think about how their season ended, it's just going the other way now. So
perfectly to complement the point you're just making, their last 7 games that Joe Burrow has started, they have either been the leader or tied with 2 minutes left. They've either had the lead within 3 or been behind by 3 within 2 minutes in all of those games. So all their last 7 games have been 3 points or less with 2 minutes to go. They were 4-0 in the first 4, and now they're 0-3 in the last 3. It evens out. When you're tied late in the game like that, you're not going to always win those situations. Most of the time they kind of go back and forth. So now they're 4-3 in all these close games recently. That's about where you should be.
Yep.
Burrow is sacked so far. So right now he's on pace to be sacked 111 times this year. The NFL record for sacks in a year is 76.
Yeah. They need to get the ball. Like, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I mean, they just,
yeah.
Like, he's just trying, everything is like a go with Chase. They just need to get, everything needs to be shorter routes until this offensive line gets it gelled together. I think timing's also an issue just because they didn't play the whatchamacallit together, the preseason games. I think timing wise, they're having a little bit of an issue too. So
on the Jets side, they got to keep trying to run the ball a little bit more. Carter and Hall have both combined for only 30 carries through 2 games. I know it's hard when they're down, but they're averaging 5.2 yards per carry. That Flacco game was nuts. He was 15 for 25 for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter alone, 11 for 19, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, brings him all the way back. And this was, he had lost 8 consecutive games when he was a starter coming into this game last week.
It's kind of funny because, like, I got all these text messages, is Joe Flacco elite? Like, my phone was just blowing up with that text message.
So great. The rookie wide receiver, Wilson, 8 catches, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns in the game-winning score. Most of his damage from the inside, caught 6 passes, 83, or excuse me, from the outside, 6 passes, 83 yards, 2 scores when lined up out wide. And they targeted him 4 times inside the 10-yard line, which is nice if he's going to be someone they lean on in the red zone. Do we know is it going to be Wilson back this week?
I think he's got one more game. But, I mean, like, the Jets are a team I don't want anything to do with fantasy-wise.
Me neither.
I think the Wilson kid had a good game, but are you really going to trust, like, Zach Wilson if he comes back or Joe Flacco to constantly get him the ball like the way they did? I just want absolutely nothing to do with this Jets offense in terms of fantasy.
Completely agree. Let's I mean, they scored a touchdown earlier in the game because a fake punt worked. There were so many things that needed to go right for them in that game in order to come all the way back and win. And they were able to do so. Let's move to Lions. Vikes, man, your Lions look really good last week. This is a game. That was a game, like we said, if the Lions want to take that next step, they have to win that game against Washington, a game that you're favored, that you should be able to win. They looked really, really good throughout a lot of that game. Minnesota gets beat on Monday night, gets handled pretty easily by Philly. Detroit looks like a 6-point underdog on the road at Minnesota. Over-under in this game, 52.5. 6 straight games for Amon-Ra St. Brown with the touchdown, tying a team record. 9 catches for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had a big run for 58 yards. 3.4 yards per route run overall. That is 8 catches at least in 8 straight games for him. He has caught 17 of his 24 targets so far to start this year with 3 touchdowns. Eric, we were a little worried with some extra offensive talented weapons this year and maybe like Swift healthy and some other pieces that they'd be spread around a little bit. That has not been the case, man. It's been the Amon-Ra show.
Yeah, he's clearly established himself as the alpha in the room. Offensively, the team looks great. I mean, they're running the ball with Swift. Swift looks like one of the better backs in the league. Offensive line's protecting. Goff isn't turning the ball over.
They were missing 3 of their regular 5 offensive line starters last week, and they pushed for 191 yards rushing and 36 points, just dominating the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, they offensively is looking good.
Hutch last week, 3 sacks in the first half. Pass rush causing problems all day. He had 4 quarterback pressures on 42 pass rushes. 10% of the time, he's right on top of the quarterback.
Yeah, he's looking great. The key thing with this is Cousins historically does a lot better against man coverage as opposed to zone coverage. Last year in the first game, that was the game where Minnesota was up big, almost lost, needed that last second field goal. They played man that whole game. The second game, which Detroit won, Detroit played zone 75% of the time, which is something historically last year they didn't do. They just did it for that one game because Cousins does struggle so much. So it's going to be interesting to see what Glenn does. Does Glenn go to the zone scheme, or does he go man to man? I think he's going to go zone because they know how well they do know Cousins. And it's crazy to think like this game is a pretty big game, because if Detroit wins this game, they legitimately have a shot of winning the North. As crazy
Absolutely.
as it sounds. If they lose this game, you know, everyone's going to be like, oh, same old Lions and everything.
Eric, I like him in this spot again. I think the Vikings got a little too much buzz off that week 1 win against a Green Bay team that was missing some of their really key weapons, and Jefferson got open a couple times. Like I like Minnesota offensively, what they're trying to do, even though it didn't work all that well against a good Eagles defense. But let's just use the Eagles as the common opponent. These two teams both played the Eagles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Detroit looked a lot more competitive and competent against that Eagles team. They came back late. They backdoor covered. The Eagles team handled Minnesota, and now Minnesota has to deal with a short week here. This feels like a really nice spot for Detroit because of the way they won that game last week, the confidence I think were able to getting an early win in the season like that. They did not score 35 points a game in back-to-back games between week 1 of 2018 and then last year in week 17. Yeah. And now in 3 straight games, they've scored 35 plus points, both games this year and last year.
Yeah, offensively, they look great.
Because the new play caller, right? The guy that once he started calling the plays towards the end of last year too.
I don't think I think they're going to be able to run. Minnesota struggles defending the run. I think they're going to be able to run. Goff's going to have to be able to make some throws. I am a little worried about defensively. Are they going to be able to stop Jefferson? That's
the key. Okuda's looked pretty not bad this year, right? Okuda's sort of like looked a little bit what you guys were hoping. He's had a rough couple years with injury and struggled a little bit, but not a bad start.
No, not a bad start at all. Glenn's got him doing well. I don't know. Like it's one of those things, like with me being such a fan, I can't.
It's hard for you. I know it's a little bit harder to look, but I like what I've seen from them at 6 and under. I'm at 6 and over. I'm taking Detroit for sure. 6 and anything above, I'm on the Detroit side here. And do you think Thielen's done? Adam Thielen? He doesn't. Through 2 weeks, just 7 receptions, 88 yards. He wasn't even targeted until midway through the third quarter, and it was on a play that led to an interception.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, they totally changed their whole scheme. Like, what their coach did versus what the Dolphins coach did is night and day. This guy came in there, changed absolutely, positively everything. They didn't run any 3 wide receiver sets. Now all they're doing is running 3 wide receiver sets, and all that is doing is just cutting into Thielen's targets. Thielen's targets are going to that 3rd wide receiver. So I don't know. Like I'm not really that big in Minnesota. I think the coach made a mistake, like changing absolutely everything. And it shows. Cook isn't doing what he did last year. Like his yardage down. Jefferson did have one big game. I mean, Cousins is 56% ATS at the 1 p.m. slot. So 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins does scare me a little bit. But me being me, I gotta stay away this. I can't bet this game just because I know even though it's the 3rd game in, if they do somehow win this, they give hope to us Lions fans, which we have not had in so goddamn long. I
love this next game. I just don't know how the Bears are favored in this game. I just think the Texans are much better. Like I know that defensively, the Texans are good. They have a good defense. They're holding their opponents to only 18 points a game. Opponents that have much better offenses in the Colts and in Denver. The offense, though, they haven't scored 20 points yet, and Mills has only completed 56% of his passes, a really low passer rating. He's struggling on 3rd downs, just 8 for 19 for 41 yards, and completing only 36% of passes thrown beyond 10 yards, which is 29th in the NFL. But Pierce showed up last week with 69 yards on 15 carries, handling the majority of snaps on early downs. And I think this Bears team is just brutal. Like in week 1, because of that monsoon, we may have gotten thrown off their scent a little bit because that was the perfect style of game for them. Fields had 48 net passing yards against the Packers. They ran the ball well, 15 carries for 122 yards, but through 2 weeks, they're running only 48 and a half plays per game. That's second lowest in the NFL. They have the highest sack rate, 12.5%, the league's lowest percentage of passing plays. The offensive line gave up 10 pressures, and Fields was sacked 3 times last week. And they only threw 11 passes in a game they lost by 17 points. That was bizarre. That happened last year, remember, with the Giants? Yeah. When the Giants coaching staff just gave up. But before that, the last time that a team lost a game by 17 or more and threw 11 or fewer passes was 2005. I mean, if you're down, you're usually just throwing to try to come back, but they weren't even trying to do that. They've only thrown for 6 first downs this year. When you become, even if you can run the ball incredibly well, when you become so easy to defend and so one-dimensional, it's just hard to move the ball. I don't know if they're going to be able to move the ball against Houston at all. I think Houston can at least move the ball a little bit against this inept Bears D. I like Houston in this spot, Eric.
Yeah, I was able to find this at 3. I locked it in. Houston could easily be 2-0. You look at exactly what have the Bears done. They beat Trey Lance in a monsoon. You know, that's kind of a fluky game. Football Outsiders has the Bears 30th overall DVOA, 30th in offense, 27 defensively. Texans easily, like I said, could be 2-0. They should have beat that game against the Colts. They're right in it into the wire against the Broncos. This team just overachieves. And when you look at 2 teams that are bad, I always take the team that are getting points. You got the Lovie Smith Revenge Bowl. One thing Lovie's able to do is he's able to motivate people and get them to play above their level. I think he's going to be able to do it here. I think the guys are going to want to win this for him basically because of how bad he was treated. I was looking at PFF, 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and PFF has Justin Fields as number 33. He's just been absolutely putrid this year.
I know.
He's missing reads.
I was hoping he would take a step forward because it feels like one of those situations where he was in a bad spot last year with bad personnel around him and in bad scheme, and they weren't giving him a shot. And then they came into this year with like no weapons. He doesn't have any receivers to throw the ball to, and he has no offensive line, and his defense is not good. Like he is on one of the worst rosters. And so you just worry about a kid like this are they ever even going to be able to develop the right way?
Yeah, I'm worried about him too. And like I said, like next year's quarterback class is so stout. If they struggle, they could be moving on from him. He's looked really poor, which is bad to see.
This is a new regime. They might want to just go get their own guy next year and say, hey, we wouldn't have gone after Fields. Like we can start all over next year.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit worried about him, but yeah, I like the Texans here. I think it's a great spot.
So this will be one of our 5. Since we have it at 2.5 here, we'll play it at 2.5. Obviously, if you can find a 3 out there, if you were able to get a 3, that's what you want. I'm going to play this game on the money line a little bit too at plus 130 Houston. I think they win this, but for just our record keeping, we'll say it's Houston plus the 2.5 here for me and Eric as one of the games that will definitely be on that side. Let's go to KC Colts, Eric. So the Chiefs 2-0 and good start, even without Hill offensively. 7 touchdowns, no interceptions for Mahomes, league leader in passer rating and in yards per attempt. 24 for 35, 235 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 big-time throws, but 3 turnover-worthy plays that the Chargers defense did fail to capitalize on. So, he was still able to make the plays when they counted. There was a 99-yard interception in that game, though, that completely flipped the game against the Chargers. And the Chiefs, according to Next Gen Stats, 28th in the league in pressures, 7th in pressures when blitzing. So other than Chris Jones, they are not getting the job done with the front 4. They need help sending an extra defender, and they're 17th in the league in blitz percentage. This is one of those games, Eric, where like every fiber in my being wants to take the Colts here. getting about 5.5 or 6 at home off of the miserable loss last week to Jacksonville, where they could not have looked worse. And the Chiefs have a couple extra days off. Like, nobody's going to want to play the Colts in this spot. As a gambler, I really want to. Can I play the Colts here?
I was able to get them at 7 before the big line move. I still like him at this number. The one thing that the Chiefs have struggled against is a physical run game. I think that's what the Colts are going to have to do. Pittman's going to be back, so they're going to get another weapon on the outside that will help. Chiefs defense did not look good against the Chargers until the Chargers started to get some offensive line injuries.
Yep.
Once the Chargers offensive line started to go down, Chiefs started to get home a little bit. Colts home opener, again, must win. They're going to lean on Jonathan Taylor. Taylor's going to be running the ball here. I don't think that the Chiefs are going to be able to struggle to stop the run. Historically, not so much this year, but they haven't really faced a good rushing attack this year. So I don't know.
It's the spot of a lifetime for the Colts.
I like the Colts here. I'd play him. I'd even play him at 5.5.
Yeah, I think it would be like down to about 5 for me, where I would be okay with playing the Colts. And what's funny is, like, all of these stats I'm going to give you are negative Colts, and that's why you play them here, because they're as undervalued as they're ever going to be. They've now lost 8 consecutive games in Jacksonville. They were favored in 6 of those games. The last time they beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville, September 21st, 2014. So since then, the Jags are 37-91 since the last time that the Colts beat them in Jacksonville, and they have 1 winning season. So 21% of their total wins in that time are against the Colts in Jacksonville.
Which is insane.
1/5 of their wins are against the Colts in Jacksonville. Their last 3 shutouts have all been against the Jags. And the Jags only have 8 shutout wins in their whole history. Matt Ryan last week, 16 for 30, 3 interceptions and 0 points. According to StatHead, it was the only game in his career with at least 25 pass attempts, a completion rate under 60%, fewer than 200 passing yards, and at least 3 interceptions. He also got sacked 5 times and did not score a point. That was the worst game he's ever played in his life by far. He's going to be a lot better in this game. He's just going to be more focused. They all are. The offensive line's going to be better. They were charged with 10 pressures allowed. They were missing their top 2 wide receivers. Jonathan Taylor got only 1 target. That was bizarre. When they are coming from behind the whole game, you got to give him a few targets at least. They've entered the 4th quarter of their 2 games this year, trailing by a combined 44-3 in those 2 games. Last week, 10 offensive possessions, 5 turnovers, 5 punts. 71 total yards in the first half. Jonathan Taylor had 5 rushing attempts and 4 yards in the first half rushing. Based on DVOA, 32 teams have had a game this bad since 2003. This was the worst offensive outing for the Colts since 1992. But the secondary did drop 3 possible interceptions, and their pass rush just needs to be a little more. All that negativity, all those bad stats, that's why me and Eric are on the Colts, because nobody else wants to, and this feels like a really good spot. There was a similar game for the Colts a few years ago. Remember when the Chiefs were like the really high-flying team? The Colts were coming off of a bad loss, and then they just had a game where they were able to run the ball, slow the game down, and beat them. I think it was either on Sunday night or Monday Night Football. It was in a high-profile game. So, we're both on the Colts side here. We'll say it's at plus 5.5 for our numbers here. Let's move along. Raiders, Titans. This is another game I really like, Eric. The Raiders are a 2-point favorite on the road going to play Tennessee. And I cannot believe the Raiders are favored in this game. I don't understand why. I mean, I've not been impressed with Tennessee, but they come off of a game where they got crushed by Buffalo. The Raiders spit out a lead against an Arizona team that had looked miserable for the first 6 quarters of the year. The Raiders have 1 sack through 2 games after investing in Jones and Crosby to massive contracts. I think this is a really nice spot for Tennessee coming off that game where they got blown out by Buffalo. I mean, I just think Buffalo is head and shoulders above everybody else. I locked in Tennessee on the money line here. I was just pretty surprised that the Raiders were favored in this game. Talk to us about Raiders, Tennessee.
Yeah, I was a little surprised too that they were favored here. Vrabel 67% as a home dog. Off a 2-game losing streak, Vrabel is 83% against the spread. Titans, they're going to run the ball. That's what they want to do. They played the Giants, who were shockingly good against the run.
And they should have won that game. That was like the week 1 game that had the Giants in winning. They had the lowest actual game winning percentage when winning that game. So the Titans should have won the week 1 game. They would be 1-1. And then they just got crushed by the team that looks like they're the best team in the league. And they're like operating on all cylinders right now.
Yeah. And I think they're going to be able to run the ball. The Raiders gave up 5.1 yards a carry to Arizona. Arizona's got Mondo offensive line issues. I think that, the Titans are live here. I locked them into 2, and I played them plus the 2.5. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. Historically, this is the spot Vrabel does well as a home dog. I like the Titans here. Adams only 2 targets.
Yeah. You mentioned this you mentioned that it's not going to be automatic for them because you have Waller there, and now Moreau is getting more looks too, which is sort of strange. You've got Adams there. You've got Renfro. They are giving another receiver some looks too. So it's just, and there's not all that. They're all kind of operating in the same space.
Yeah, and they don't have like that guy that can stretch the field. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Carr's not doing as much pre-snap read stuff. It's kind of like McDaniel gives him the play and just does it.
Again, like last week, no big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play. Just like a Carr kind of game, 74% adjusted completion percentage, but just, playing it safe because they were up pretty big early, and then they spit out that game. They absolutely collapsed late. On the Titans side, the rookie wide receiver Burks caught 4 of 6 targets, 47 yards, 3 first down. He got a good receiving grade. He's a big body. Caught 2 of 3 contested targets. He was also targeted 5 times in week 1. So maybe someone for like a DFS. And I'm definitely going to invest heavily in Derrick Henry this week in DFS. This feels like a real get right spot for Derrick Henry. If he has anything left, we're going to see it this week in this spot against this team where they have to put a real focus on him. Offensive line, we have to see with Luan. The pass protection unit allowed 15 pressures and 28 pass blocking snaps. Their rookie tackle was really, really bad. So they're going to want to try to run the ball because that will just make things a lot easier for them. And it feels like they should be able to against this Raiders team.
Yeah, they should be able to run the ball. Raiders have struggled. Vrabel, this is just kind of the spot you do it. And let's face it, like the Raiders, they have offensive line issues. They have secondary issues. They have defensive issues. Everyone kind of got distracted when they brought in Devontae Adams. I'm not a buyer on this team. I think they're a little overvalued. So, yeah, let's lock in the
Titans.
Titans.
Let's move to the Saints and the Panthers. Saints, they had an ejection in the game when Lattimore and Mike Evans get into a fight, and that left them without their top 2 cornerbacks. One had been ejected and one was out via injury. On the first possession after Lattimore was ejected, Brady threw a 28-yard touchdown right over the top.
Well, I mean, like that game, like I hate blaming officials. That game was so poorly officiated. It was just awful. Saints offense really struggled. You can definitely tell that, Winston and those back fractures that he has.
4 fractured back vertebrae.
Yeah,
it just sounds bad.
You can't really step in and do stuff. And when you don't have Alvin Kamara there, it kind of limits what you can do offensively because you really don't have that playmaker in the backfield.
They're not respecting you as much in the box, to open it up. Like it's not going to make it as easy for you. I do like Olave. He led the Saints with 13 targets, but only had 5 catches for 80 receiving yards. He had a 26.1 yards average depth of target. That led all receivers. He leads the team in targets and receiving yards through 2 weeks. He's played over 70% of the snaps. He surpassed 300 air yards. According to Next Gen, since 2016, only Julio Jones, Mike Evans, A.J. Brown, and Marquise Brown have accomplished that in one game. His 334 air yards were the third highest single game total in their database since 2000. So this dude he's a good field stretcher, but if Jameis's back is hurting, that's why they weren't able to connect all that much.
Yeah. I can't. Here's the thing. I've bet Mayfield twice in a row.
I know. And he struggled a little bit, and he's not played great, but when I watch them now, I am so frustrated with Rule too. Like, I just don't think he's a good coach at all.
Yeah. This is the team we want to back, like, once they get a new coaching staff in there, because Rule's done after this year. This team can't blow you out. They need to win like a 10-3, 10-7 type of game. It's hard to trust, like I said, the Saints with the injuries to Winston.
They've given up 10 sacks, which is the second most in the league. Their pass blocking group allowed 6 sacks last week, could not get really anything going on the ground as far as running the ball either. I've been a little disappointed with the Saints just overall. I mean, they should very easily be, like you said, last week they got some bad calls, but the week 1, Atlanta thoroughly outplayed them. And they came back late and were lucky to get a really late win. They could easily be 0-2 here right now. And with Jameis, possibly having a bad back at the very beginning of the year, it just doesn't bode well for them. I can't get back in on the Panthers right now. Their offensive line issues, their left tackle, the rookie 6th pick, they knew pass protection was going to be a weakness, but there were like moments last week. There's a 3rd and 6 in a big spot, and a guy just goes right by him. Like they can't even run their play. Like in spots like that, they're one of the worst teams in 3rd down efficiency. They only ran 54 plays on offense, and they only ran 50 the week before. That's the second fewest so far. Baker's struggling. His passes are being batted down, risky throws. He doesn't look comfortable in the pocket or just comfortable with this offense. 3 different receivers dropped a pass. So while he doesn't look great, the receivers haven't looked all that great either. This is a stay away from me.
Yeah, pure stay away from me. I don't want anything to do with this game.
Philly, Washington. So Philly comes off the big win on Monday night. They're one of the more overvalued teams in the league right now. Is the number we're seeing enough to get you in on Washington at home as like a 6.5 point underdog?
I'm waiting on this one. I'll definitely be on the Commanders here. I'm really hoping that
it looks like it's headed towards a 7, right? I think so.
That was 7 for about 20 minutes, a couple,
and then jump right back down.
And then jump down. Like I'm looking at it right now on my app that I use to find the best lines, and it's 6 and 6.5. I mean, hopefully it gets back up to 7. If not, I'll gladly play the 6.5. Commanders, I mean, I know people are scared about Kerry McLaurin. He does lead them in targets. It's only a matter of time before he does have that big Terry McLaurin game everyone's waiting for. This team, the Commanders, statistically wise, is the best team in the red zone. And this is, like I said, like you said, it's all about buying low, selling high.
We like the Eagles. We like the Eagles. I think they're one of the best teams in the league. But right now, because everybody saw them beat up Minnesota on Monday night, they're a couple extra points higher than they should be in this spot. And this is the spot to take Washington.
Yep, this is the spot to take Washington. This is the time to sell out of the Eagles. But I want a 7. I want the 7 so bad. Now I'll play the 6.5. I think they'll be able to. I think when you got a weapon like Curtis Samuels, you'll be able to use him, scheme him, get in a position, to get some points on the board. And like I said, this team, when they get in the red zone, is doing well. They're statistically the best team scoring in the red zone. So, I'll take the Commanders here. But like I said, I want the 7.
Defense has allowed NFL high of 4 plays of 40 or more yards, and they in the 2 games. They allowed 3 against Detroit last week on Washington's side. Logan Thomas, tight end, caught a touchdown, increased his snaps and routes from week 1 to week 2. So keep an eye on him gradually stepping forward as he gets more and more healthy. They gained 20 yards in the first 11 plays of the game. And then they finished the first 30 minutes with only 2 first downs. Wentz got sacked 4 times in the first half, and he threw 8 incomplete passes in 17 attempts. Then the second half, they were incredible. He had 197 yards and 4 touchdowns. So we've really seen like Jekyll and Hyde Wentz in both of these games so far this week. This feels like the spot. I mean, I like the Eagles. I think they're one of the best teams in football. Week 1, they had their defensive backs playing soft coverage and didn't put a ton of pressure on the Lions. Then on Monday, the corners gave Minnesota receivers no room to operate. Much different than week 1. They made life difficult on Cousins, who threw multiple interceptions, faced a bunch of creative blitzes. Hurts had 2 big-time throws, 10.7 yards per pass attempt on the ground. He averaged 5 yards per carry. And the offensive line, 0 sacks across 38 pass blocking snaps. Lots of positives for the Eagles. They're way overvalued right now. I don't even know about overvalued, but they're as high of a value as they're going to be right this second. So, Eric, we may be able to lock in Washington if we need to come back to this one. I'm with you. Like I like other games more. So 7 would be the number that I dive in right away. If it was 6.5 and we can't find another game, I'm okay with coming back to this game as one of them if we have to.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention in this one?
No, I'd look at Terry McLaurin though in DFS. Like he's going to be undervalued.
What do we know about Brown? AJ Brown, is okay?
As far as I know, he's okay.
Okay. So we continue along. We're headed now to Jacksonville against the Chargers. So, oh no, excuse me. I think we got, did we miss one? No. Jacksonville Chargers. Okay. Jacksonville is a 7-point dog on the road against the Chargers. Chargers -7. Over under to this game is around 47. Tell us some of your early thoughts on this one after the Jags come off a beatdown last week.
I took the Jags +7. My thought process is this: the Chargers have offensive line issues. Herbert, has a rib injury. God only knows how much he's going to play, if he's going to play. And I just wanted to lock in this at 7 just in case he sat out. You know what I mean? Because if he sits out, this is just going to drop. And I really feel it's kind of already priced in as if he's going to play here. So I'm not expecting it to go, you know what I mean? I don't expect it to go up.
Well, it's not going to get to 12. You know what I mean? It's not going to, if he's playing, this is what the number is. Yeah. Jacksonville looked fine last week. You know, they won. They've looked competent. That was Trevor Lawrence's best game as a pro by far. 25 for 30, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They designed quick throws for him. He was decisive with his decision-making, spread the ball to 7 receivers, 11 for 13 for 98 yards in the second half. He picked up first downs on 5 straight throws and a 4th and goal touchdown to put them up 24-0, and then they just cruised.
Yeah, and their front's playing a lot better. With the injuries that the Chargers have up front, I think they're going to be able to get to Herbert or Chase Daniels if he plays.
Josh Allen, 4 pressures, 2 sacks. Walker, 3 pressures on the day, 1 hit, 2 hurries. Also made 2 tackles in the run game, including 1 stop. They had 5 sacks, 3 interceptions, and 11 quarterback hits.
Oh yeah, I mean their defense is playing lights out. I'm a little worried about the Chargers' run game. I thought it'd be a lot better here. Eckler, they seem to be saving Eckler for not giving him the touches. The kid they got from Texas A&M isn't even getting on the field. They brought in Sony Michel. They're using Josh Kelly still. So I really feel that the Chargers are going to have to kind of go back to looking to run the ball a little bit more. Maybe this is the game they look to get it going. Defensively, they have Callahan in the secondary who's just shutting everyone down. So those that have Christian Kirk, I kind of taper those expectations. And I'd look maybe to Marvin Jones or for fantasy for the Jags here. But 7, that's just a big number, especially with Herbert, who's just, the fact he was able to finish that game was still amazing to me last.
8 times, sacked twice, that rib issue, but he did go 33 for 48 for 334 yards. 3 touchdowns and a pick.
You don't know what's going on with Keenan Allen. The Chargers just banged up right here.
Yeah.
And like I said, when it was sitting at 7 and you have that many injuries, I feel
because if Herbert's not playing, then it's 3 or 3.5, right? Like it moves down 3 points, 4 points.
This is just going to drop. So yeah, I got it 7. I'm happy with the 7.
Kirk last week caught 6 targets, all 6 targets for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns for Jacksonville, 38 yards after the catch. Robinson averaging 18 and a half touches and just under 18 fantasy points. He saw twice as many snaps and received most of the short yardage work as well as the goal line work. They used him on 3rd and 5 or less, and they used Etienne on 3rd and 6 or more. So he looks like he's going to be more of the receiving back there. Since opening day 2020, the Jags are 3-2 against the Colts and 2-28 against everybody else.
That's crazy. That is absolutely.
And you know what? They are number 2 in DVOA.
Yeah, I saw that.
Based off of that last week game, because when you win a game and you shut a team out and you play pretty efficient on the offensive side, then it's an excellent game. And that's what they did. They're actually second in first and second down EPA added per pass play. So they're like what I'd said here and what we both said about Miami, they're doing a better job putting Lawrence in a spot to succeed, giving him short, quick throws, not necessarily making him have to drop back and go through all of the progressions and have to make something out of nothing. Like, you've got a little bit better weapons now. Take some advantage of that. These are guys that can actually get open a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how good Lawrence is able to look when he has coaching.
Okay, we move along to where are we going? Falcons, Seahawks. That's next. Falcons, Seahawks. So this game is basically a pick 'em now.
Yeah, I mean, this was at like 2.5, 3. I feel kind of. I mean, the way I look at it is like if you didn't get the 2.5 or 3 on the Falcons, you kind of missed the boat.
Yeah.
Falcons easily could be 2-0. They did play Atlanta pretty tough. Not Atlanta, excuse me.
Rams.
Rams pretty tough last week. Their run game looks great. What's his face? Pitts, tough matchup against the Saints. Ramsey was shadowing him. This is going to be a Pitts game. I really think this is the game where Pitts looks to break out.
He's had only 10 targets and 4 receptions and 38 receiving yards through 2 games so far. So I agree. This is a DFS Pitts game, it feels like to me.
And, Seahawks struggle to stop the run. Falcons, with what they like to do, like to run the ball. Falcons got some weapons. I just kind of feel I missed the boat here.
I agree. I think Atlanta is the better team overall. I've been more impressed with what I've seen from Atlanta, just like on all sides of the ball. They're just better everywhere. And this is something you were pointing out. And it's not necessarily going to result in a bunch of wins and losses this year, but it might result in them covering a lot of games and playing in a lot of close games because they're pretty well coached. And because of Mariota, they have a different look where a guy that can move his feet a little bit. And they do have some weapons. Drake London got his first career touchdown, finished with 8 catches, 11 targets for 86 yards, also caught a 2-point conversion. He's had 19 targets through 2 games. He has as many touchdowns as Kyle Pitts does in his career right now,
which is
just crazy to think about. The Seattle running back duo, they look good on paper, but they've only got 96 yards on 25 carries through 2 games. They need to get going there. Geno Smith ranks 27th in average air yards per attempt in week 1, and then he completed 1 pass Sunday that gained more than 17 yards. And he has an 80% completion rate. That was the highest in a game which a quarterback's team didn't score an offensive point since stats were first tracked in 1932. He's playing it too safe there. And they're just not going to be able to.
He needs to let it flow a little bit.
Then they're just not going to be able to score all that much this year with what he's going to be offering them. But I'm with you. This is a stay away for me. Let's move to Green Bay, Tampa, 2 teams who feel like they're 2 of the top teams on the NFC side. And we have Green Bay as a 1-point-ish underdog here. Tampa as a slight favorite in this game, over under. How about this? Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, an over-under of 42. And this is not a game that's in Green Bay. But the Packers, did you see the celebration the guys did when they scored the touchdown? Where they were drinking the tea like
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers, like the Ayakusa, and then they were shamans pouring tea and then falling over. So they're having some fun with that. At least the offense still wasn't sharp. They fumbled a handoff exchange, a shotgun snap. They still have some things to work on. Rodgers was 19 for 25, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays. His 23rd win over the Bears. This was a running game for them. Jones had 132 yards and a touchdown, 15 carries, 3 catches, 3 targets for 35 yards with another touchdown. He forced 9 missed tackles on the ground and picked up 85 yards after contact. And they actually used Jones and Dillon on the field at the same time for 10 different snaps, running backs combining for 237 yards there. Some points on the Tampa side. Evans got suspended during the last game after just crushing Lattimore with a real cheap shot. This has been like the 3rd or 4th time they've had incidents. This happened in 2017, 2020, they went after it. So they went after it again here. They were shut out in the first half. They only managed a field goal in the 3rd quarter, and they've only scored on 25% of their trips to the red zone, which is 30th in the league. It's not really a Tom Brady thing. That was the Saints' first win against Brady since joining the Bucs. It's in their regular season. They did lose a playoff game. And they won without Godwin, Jones, and then Mike Evans went out. So Perriman became the guy. He had to throw a nice touchdown pass to him. Dean had a couple interceptions that changed the game. And White had a sack and a half in the 4th quarter and also leading the team with 6 stops, solo tackles or tackles that led to an offensive failure. And Akeem Hicks, injury issues. He'll be out for at least a month with a foot injury.
Yeah, I play the Bucs here minus the 1. Home opener. Defensively, I think this is the best team that the Green Bay has played. I think that their defense is going to be able to stop the Packers' run attack. And let's face it, that's what the Packers are right now. They're a run attack team. Dillon and Jones are the two-headed monster. I think they'll be able to stop the run. You mentioned Dean. Dean's playing a great job in the secondary. Offensively, I think they're going to be able to run the ball. I think Green Bay has kind of struggled stopping the run. I think they're going to be able to run the ball with Fournette. Perriman is going to be able to. I take that back. I'm not really worried about Perriman and the lack of offense on the outside. I just feel that inside the trenches, Tampa Bay just has an advantage, and they're going to be able to move the ball and run the ball. So I like them there. And what does this Packers team do? They lose in Florida in the hot in humidity, and that's what I think they're going to do here. So yeah, I like excuse me, I like the Bucs here. I got them at minus 1.
Yep, I think we can probably make the Bucs one of our plays this week too. I like them too. I just think they're the better team. They're at home. This number should be 3 or above, and I think we're getting value on it. So we're both on the Tampa side here as we continue along to the Rams and the Cardinals. So we're seeing the Rams as a 3.5-point favorite on the road, heading to play the Cardinals in here. The Rams come off a win where they were up 28-3, and then they almost laid a huge egg against the Falcons, but they still were able to get their first victory of the year. They got beat up in week 1 against Buffalo. Overall, Stafford has thrown 5 interceptions. Last year, he led the league, was tied for the league lead with 17 interceptions. So he's always someone who throws some picks. It's not really that big of a deal. When they matter in the games, they are. But for him overall, that's sort of part of his game. Kupp this year, 13 receptions, 128 yards, and then 11 of 14 for 108 yards in his 2 games. So just right back where he left off. Bobby Wagner had 6 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss and a sack, a very nice grade. It probably is his highest since 2020. Last week, the Rams allowed a league-leading 23 pressures to the Bills on 53 pass blocking snaps. This week, major improvements, only allowed 2 pressures on 36 pass blocking snaps, and those 2 pressures came by the left tackle. So the other 4 offensive linemen allowed 0 pressures. That was a lot better than week 1 for them. But they did have to place cornerback Troy Hill on injured reserve, which will help them, which will hurt them in the secondary. The Cardinals, they were down 20-0 against the Raiders last week. They scored 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions in the fourth quarter, including one with no time on the clock at the end of regulation. In one of those, Kyler Murray scrambled for 20 seconds. 20 seconds running around to keep the Cardinals in the game when they were trailing 23-15 at that point. And then in overtime, it was the defense. They put a couple big hits on Hunter Renfrow. He fumbled twice, and the second one, they returned for a game-winning touchdown. What do you think of this game, this number? Are you getting involved in here in any way?
Nah, your boy Dave texted me this. Rams 9-1 ATS last 10 versus the Cardinals 7-0 ATS last 7 at Arizona.
McVay sort of owns Cliffy.
Yeah, even though this is 3.5, I can't get involved.
Cardinals, and that felt like a Cardinal big win, like kind of fluky, like something that they may come out flat this week after that win.
Okay,
but I'm not going to lay the number on the road like this. The number I don't like. I'm staying away, but I feel like this is a really nice spot for the Rams to come back and play
this is an absolute great spot for them to get a bounce back. Because they just haven't looked crisp. Even though they won that game against Atlanta, they hadn't looked crisp.
No, it doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth the way the game ends.
They need to get their run game is just struggling. They're not able to run the ball. Robinson did look better. They got him some targets going. I really feel that, with the injuries they have on the offensive line, obviously Stafford not being 100%, not playing in the preseason, and you have new moving pieces. I think it's just going to take some time to get gelled, but with what they have, I'm not really that worried with them.
Let's and think about the NFC right now. Everybody has, like, the Eagles are right now like the tip top of the NFC. You look at Tampa, they're not perfect. You look at Green Bay, they're certainly not perfect. All of the top teams in the NFC seem like they have some issues.
Yeah, everyone top to bottom has some issues in the NFC.
Okay, let's get to the last couple games on the slate for this weekend, Sunday and Monday. We have Sunday Night Football, I believe, the 49ers and the Broncos here. So, wow, this Broncos team, some fun stuff to talk about. 32 points in their first 2 games. It's just, you watch this guy, Eric, I have to give you all of the credit in the world. You called this immediately. You said, this guy has never called plays. They brought him there to try to lure Aaron Rodgers there. I don't know if he's going to be a great head coach. He can't get plays in from the sidelines, so they're always behind or trying to snap the ball right against the end of the play clock over and over. I mean, there's so many things to point out what he's doing wrong. Week 1, they needed a field goal to win. They crossed midfield with more than a minute left in the game. At that point, he should have run a play or called a timeout. They let 40 seconds go off the clock. Then they call a timeout. Then he asks Brandon McManus if he thinks he can kick a 64-yard field goal, which would have been tied for the second longest field goal in league history in one of the toughest stadiums to kick. This week, week 2, it's the end of the half. Broncos are on the goal line. All of their timeouts remaining. He doesn't know whether to go for it or not, so he's wasting so much time figuring it out. The play clock expires. So now all of a sudden it's 4th and 6. Now you have to kick a field goal. You have no choice. You're not going to go for it now on 4th and 6. You just take the points at the end. He is atrocious in situational spots. Denver trailing by 3 points in the second half, 3rd and 1. He calls an option with a fullback that has not carried the ball. I don't think has a carry in a couple years. Someone who never gets the ball at all on a huge play. They end up losing a yard and it's 4th down. He leaves the offense on the field. Then he changes his mind and he brings out the field goal unit. But before they could kick a field goal, the clock expires again. So now he can't even kick a field goal. They could have tried to get a 59-yarder, which we saw McManus hit. He hit it, but the clock expired. So then they have to end up punting. Then they have 0 timeouts left with 7 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game. It is literally as bad as I can ever remember seeing somebody with clock management. the Broncos fans, did you hear them counting?
I mean, it's just embarrassing. They're counting down the play clock that way.
To try to help you. It sounds like the Royal Rumble countdown. When they're, you know what I mean? Like when everybody in the stands is counting down before the next person comes into the Royal Rumble. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Like they're counting them down before I was laughing. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's just absolutely just insane. There was 3 times on special teams where the play clock ran out. It was either a punt or a field goal attempt. There's one time at the end of the game, they didn't have a punt returner back there when the Texans were going to punt. You have Javonte Williams looking like a young Emmitt Smith, can't even get the ball. You know, you're still giving it to old man Melvin Gordon. There's just a lot of stuff going on there you just don't understand. And I'll be honest, I thought it was going to be bad. I had no idea it was going to absolutely be this bad. It is embarrassing that they're counting it down.
You know what? It looks a little bit like the Urban Meyer stuff last year in the first couple of weeks.
And
they've been lucky.
This is why I could never be a GM or an owner of a team, because this guy would be gone.
Right now, I would have fired him instantly. But the thing is, we wouldn't have hired this guy though. That's the difference. That's the difference is that, and the guy that you bring in, you would give them a little bit more time because you know even if they're under talented, they're at least operating and making the right decisions. This guy's the opposite. They should absolutely be 2-0 right now. They had a cake start to the season and they almost lost both their games. This game though is really interesting. I mean, they haven't even completed any of their 8 passing attempts inside the opponent's 5-yard line.
They haven't even scored a red zone touchdown yet. Like they're just
in completion percentage last week was 56%. The pass rush wasn't coming up with pressure, but they did have a couple big plays. Chubb and Gregory combined for 7 pressures and then 1 big sack late. Offensive line played pretty well as a pass blocking unit. They allowed 6 total pressures and only one. And they only one O-line allowed less. Denver almost had 150 rushing yards. So few positives there. On the 49ers side, Trey Lance, we saw get hurt last week, out for the season, suffered a broken ankle that will require surgery. Poor guy now. I mean, his final college season was wiped out for the pandemic. His rookie NFL year, he was a backup. And now in his first season as a starter, he played 5 quarters. And now what do you do with him moving forward? Like, how do you even know what this guy is?
You don't know what he is. And unfortunately, you're probably going to have to move on from him.
It's going to be 4 years fully removed from his last full season as a starter, which was against low-level colleges.
Yep. I don't know. Like, my thing is I had a pretty big position on 49ers futures for them not to make the playoffs. And I actually have them graded higher now with Jimmy Garoppolo there.
Absolutely. They're better. They have less of a floor now, for sure.
Yep. I'm going to have to find a spot to hedge out of them. The concerning thing is Shanahan is 37%, 37.5. So basically 38% ATS as a favorite. I'm hate laying numbers like this on the road. This is probably going to be a pure stay away for me. I don't want anything to do with this game. How can you possibly trust Nathan Hackett?
I know. I can't. I wanted to play Denver in this side, but I just can't do it right now. And it's just not enough for me with San Francisco with Jimmy G because, you know, he looked fine last week and they're comfortable, but we got to remember, like, Jimmy G is not Joe Montana. Jimmy G was a guy they were trying to get off of because he couldn't quite take them to the next level. They didn't even give him a playbook early on in training camp. They wanted to get rid of him, but nobody else wanted him, so they brought him back. Nobody else was willing to really make the deal for him. There's a lot of teams that could use a Jimmy G right now. He made 1 big-time throw, 1 turnover-worthy play. Bosa last week, 7 total pressures, 4 hurries, 2 sacks, and a quarterback hit. Offensive line allowed just 9 total pressures, didn't give up a sack. If I had to make a pick in this game, I would pick Denver. But I'm not going to invest my money on Denver.
Yeah, you can't. There's nothing he's done. He's way over his head. He has no idea what he's doing. Russ hasn't looked Russ-esque. Jerry Jeudy, man.
He was like 4 for 15 at one point in the game.
Yeah.
Last week.
They're struggling to stop the run. 49ers are going to look to run the ball. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff going on. It's not really. Sometimes, it looks like sometimes the best play is just to go to bed early on Sunday, and it looks like that's what I'm going to be doing.
Monday night, we have Dallas versus the Giants. The Giants 2-0 this year with the new staff. How cool is it for the Giants? So, think about last year. This is a team that ran a quarterback sneak on a 3rd and 9 from their own 5-yard line in week 18 last year. They just gave up. This year, week 1, they go for 2 for the win in the first game of the season. And then this week, 3rd and 6, they could have run the ball and punted. Instead, they have a bootleg Daniel Jones keeper where he's able to pick the ball, where he's able to pick it up. They didn't just give a really plain hand it off to the running back right up the gut. And then they pick up a first down and they're able to run the clock out. That's just such a different philosophy from last year for a team that was coached by a staff that was telling their players, we stink, we don't believe in you. This guy's telling his guys, let's go out there and win these games. Like, I trust you to make these plays. Let's make the plays. I'm going to empower you. And I don't know how good they are, but it's pretty cool to see a staff come in, get a couple things to bounce their way. This is their first 2-0 start in 13 years. Jones had 239 yards total offense and the only touchdown pass of the game. His 3rd and final rushing first down was the one that put the game in way. Williams went out late in the game, but before going out, he had 4 hurries and a really good grade. Their defense has only allowed 36 total points, even without its top 2 pass rushers. They haven't won consecutive games decided by 3 points before this since 2016. But they went back-to-back close ones. They go 4 of 4 on field goals last week. You have Dallas, who maybe got away with one last week. I mean, they were the better team overall, but I don't know if I want to count on Rush repeatedly. I think in spots here and there, he can look good. I don't really know if I have a strong opinion one way or the other in here. Talk to us a little bit about this game, Eric.
I mean, where the number is, it kind of tells me you have to play the Giants.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning that way too.
Anything under 3, you kind of have to play the Giants here. Hard to trust Cooper Rush, don't get me wrong. Former CMU great, 2-0 against the spread as a starter, but there's just a lot of issues going on. I think Parsons is going to be able to get to Jones. Jones does struggle at home covering the spread. But they got it done last week against the Panthers. Dable does have this team going in the right direction. Barkley does look good. Defensively, it looks a lot better. Offensive line's protecting. If Dak was playing here, probably a completely different story. Cowboys would probably be home road favorites, but with Cooper Rush, they're getting 1. This was at 2.5, so money is coming in on the Cowboys. So if you like the Cowboys, you kind of missed the boat. My eyes, it's Giants or nothing right now.
So you have the Rush, Cooper Rush, who will be starting again, was 19 for 31, 235 passing yards, 7.6 yards per attempt, 2 turnover-worthy plays, but did play well above expectation with 2 big-time throws. And Burrow only had 199 yards in that game and 5.5 yards per attempt. Noah Brown looked like his guy. Brown caught all 5 targets for 91 yards and a touchdown. All 5 receptions were either a first down or a touchdown. And he was 2 for 2 on contested catch opportunities. They lined up Parsons almost always as a pass rusher against the Bengals. He had 2 sacks and 7 pressures and 3 pass rush wins that didn't result in a pressure. So he had a win rate of 25%, 4 sacks in 2 games. They need to line him up more as a pass rusher. They actually won a game without their starting quarterback, their starting left tackle, and one of their starting safeties. They got up 17-3 in the first half. Then they allowed the Bengals to tie the game in the fourth quarter, but a late drive gave them a 50-yard game-winning field goal. Rookie left guard Tyler Smith has been pretty impressive in pass and run blocking departments, only allowing 1 pressure across 39 snaps in pass protection. But I lean the Giants in here. It's a nice spot for them catching a backup quarterback here with an opportunity to go to 3-0.
Yeah, it's a great spot. It is an absolute great spot for them.
So, Eric, you and I will be talking football again on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. We'll go through all of the Sunday games on Better Than Vegas's show presented by Betfred Sports. It's called 4th and Inches. So we'll know anything more about injuries. We'll talk some more DFS stuff about pricing. We'll see if the lines have moved at all at that point. You and I will also talk some college football on Friday. We have a show that streams. It's totally free, live at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. We go over some of the biggest games of the weekend for college football. So that'll be Friday, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. You, me, and XFL Jim going through everything college football. So if you didn't get enough of me and Eric right now, you can still catch more of us coming up over the weekend on Friday and then again on Sunday. Tell us what you have going on with your show, buddy.
Podcast comes out on Friday and live stream every Tuesday, and I'm with you on Friday night on the BTV show and the Sunday morning on the BTV show.
Make sure to give Eric a follow. You hear him here each and every week. Rest those pipes, my friend. I hope you feel a little bit better. Thanks so much again for helping us out. NFL Week 3 is in the books. Don't go anywhere, folks. Still have a lot more to come. If you're listening on the podcast, that's what G said. I'll also be posting these videos on social media every week on Twitter. So if you want to watch and kind of look at some of the lines as we're going along, you can always check it out. If you come give me a follow on Twitter, it's me, Gino B.